So today we're discussing manifesting through challenging times. So do you want to kick that off? Or do you want me to kick it off?
We're both, everybody, hi everybody. If you are watching this live, fantastic, glad you're here. If you were attempting before, our apologies. We seem to do everything we're supposed to do, but just wouldn't connect. But anyway, so here we are. And there will be a replay, so we'll edit out any of the static, etc. But this idea of manifesting in challenging times, I would just like to, in kicking it off, to say that I love the word, like we all do, manifesting. It just rolls off your tongue. It's so cool, so easy. And yet on another level, I'm a little bit leery of it because it implies magic. That you don't have to do anything, just set an intention and poof, it happens. So truly what I want to invite you to consider, to think about is, we'll keep talking about manifesting. It's really more of a process of co-creating. That you are far more than what you realize. Each of us have unlimited potential, and we need skills. We need to first have the awareness to recognize that potential, and then skills to help us navigate any time in history. Not just now, I guess, I hope at the end of a pandemic, but it's been very challenging for everybody. And let's face it, challenging times are on and off in our lives. So our hope was, our intention was that we could cover some points, guide you through, and kind of give you a roadmap, if you will. So the first thing I would say, and this is really Janine, so let me say this, for those of you who are watching on my page, watching the replay of this and or YouTube, this is my friend and colleague, Janine Shaka, who is our Silva instructor in Australia, Sydney. And although Janine is originally from South Africa, and now living in...
I'm Italian, South African, living in Australia, mixed pot.
Okay, see, she got a very confusing accent. If you listen, well, let me show you our sign. However, we met, I guess it was 2015 via...
Yes.
Long story short, I usually would not entertain somebody who wants to be an instructor unless they've at least been through the training and they know something about it. And frankly, many people contact me as training director and they want to be instructors and they haven't even taken the coursework yet. How could you put your name on it? Well, this young woman reached out to both me and to Silva International. And like I said, I usually do, but I had a sense about her. And we had this Skype session together. I believe it was Skype we did.
Yeah.
And she went on by just doing a home study called Silva Manifesting, which has been improved, and Janine now is behind that. She was working wonders in her work, became top producer, and turned things around. And it was incredible. It was awesome. And she was so excited, and it was infectious, and she got me all excited. And the next thing I know, within a year's time, she flew to Chicago, attended the course, Silva Life and Intuition System, and then really went to town. And then 1 year later, she's with me in a 10-day certification training. And here she is now doing, really wonders. But what I really wanted to say is, Janine, you're really a living example of somebody who walks the talk, of somebody who uses the tools, because everybody knows this. The first step is you got to show up. Then the next step is you've got to be consistent. It's not a quick fix. It's not magic. And I think I was just today and reading some comments on one of the, I'm not going to give the name, but it was a Silva group page, not my own, another group. And people were commenting, well, I've been doing this 3 times a day for a few days and nothing's happened. And I'm laughing. I'm 50 years as a student here and as a teacher, and I can tell you that there are many people who are far smarter, more brilliant, and more charismatic than I could ever be, I think. And the only reason why I'm still here and thriving is because I show up and I'm consistent. Even tonight, we spent almost a half an hour attempting to adjust Facebook and get this right. And there was feedback. And I mean, who in their right mind does that? It's so persistent. And that's one of the things that I really admire about you, Janine, is that you have that quality. So to kick off as a topic, you're welcome. First step is we've got to shift out of scarcity consciousness. Money is energy. Our life is energy. Everything is energy, as we all know. And if we are stuck in fear-based thinking, scarcity consciousness, which is symptomatic of gimme, 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 I want, and complaining and constant complaining. And I don't mean to be disrespectful. However, if ever you've been there, you know what I'm saying, is the brain takes over and you can't control that. And the brain chemistry takes over because survival is number one priority. Security is number two. And that's a big reason why people are not creating what they want in their lives or manifesting it, because they're coming from a place of scarcity. They're coming from a place of lack. They're coming from a place of fear of not. So the first most important step is to shift that, to have the skills and to use the skills to make that shift.
Yeah.
So I would say first step. How about you, Janine?
Well, actually, when I was thinking about manifesting in challenging times, the first thought that came in my head was it's exactly the same as manifesting in good times. What's the difference? The difference is we have a lot more distractions that are negative and continuous stimulus that's negative in challenging times that causes us to potentially be distracted by negative energy. So negative energy becomes negative thoughts, negative feelings, and that's where you just cannot manifest with that opposing energy. But the actual techniques or the tools or the characteristics that you require to manifest are the same. Challenging times and good times, it just takes a lot more mindfulness in challenging times to manage all that outside stimulus that's coming in through our five senses, affecting the thoughts in the conscious mind, because everything starts with a thought. So even what Ken was talking about with scarcity, that feeling I don't have enough, I've got to have more, that feeling that you just, can't, like you don't feel like you have more than enough, you feel like you don't have enough. And that originates with a thought, really. So the first, if you had to cascade them down, the way we even teach in the Silva Method is everything begins with a thought. And these thoughts just trigger our feelings. And when we have those feelings, that's a feeling of lack. That was Ken was talking about. And those feelings, if we repeat them just not even 100 times, just 2 to 3 times, we've already created a pattern. And that pattern gets easier to run. It's almost like a circuit board of electricity, or even water flowing in a certain pattern down to the sea. The more it flows, the easier that gets and the more of a groove it creates. So that's the same with the neural pathway. We just think the same thing 2 or 3 times and now we've got a pattern. So what happens is that eventually becomes our attitude. I don't have enough. Times are hard. Then you have a belief. Things are not happening for me. I'm really struggling. And then once we've got a belief, all that happens from there is life keeps proving it back to us, because we view the world through a different perception filter every time our belief changes. So we've got to roll all the way back up to thoughts. So let's go there, because this is about management. Management of what goes on between the two ears. I say the most expensive real estate is just these few inches between one ear and the other.
I just want to comment, though, before we jump into thoughts, because what you said, I think, was so meaningful, that it's the same exact framework that we would use in good times, bad times, and any times, except, though, I think let's acknowledge that during these times in particular, with the media having such a negative news bias, that it's harder to maintain that balance, because we're constantly being reminded about watch out for this and what about this, and then they change this, and we're giving all this attention to what's wrong rather than what's right. And the point is that the stress hormones increase, and when the stress hormones increase, we get overwhelmed and flooded, and when that happens, the body takes over, and it can lead into a pathology like a clinical depression. And right now in the world, not just the US, depression is on a very scary uptick. And it's no secret, and just you don't need to be a rocket scientist or a psychologist, it's because of all the distress. We're all being bombarded. And therefore, I would say that if you're just taking the time to every day go for a walk, if nature's available, a river, the ocean, a wooded area, or if not, a park, and to daily meditate, reflect, just to be, to balance That's the surest way. And it needs to be done not once a week, certainly not once a month, but every day. And I would say multiple times, even if it's just for 30 seconds to 3 minutes, just to help keep the body stabilized. So what I wanted to add, Janine, because you really hit on a really important point, is that to not minimize the situation. So it could be as simple if you're a Silva graduate, you've got incredible tools, a treasury that work as long as you use them. It could be, however, just as simple as eyelids closed in a quiet place, comfortable position, and 3 slow, deep belly breaths, taking your time. The slow breath is the beginning of taking control, taking command, literally, of the autonomic nervous system. Because if the autonomic nervous system kicks in because of scarcity and lack and fear, it takes over and, excuse my language, you're screwed unless you can change that and redirect that. So prevention is the best medicine. And I would recommend any time during the day before you go to another meeting, another client, another event, a task that's important to you, or before you go to have dinner with your family and friends, or before you go on a date, whatever it is, that you quiet yourself, eyes closed, 3 slow, deep breaths, and then think about your intention. Like Janine said, cultivate that thought, your intention, what you want. And if you just here's a takeaway, if you just do that, you'll notice your performance will increase. You'll be more likely to be more mindful, more present, rather than like this and still stuck at the problems that you had in your work-related issues for that.
So I just want to share something. What you've said is so very true. And if you had to frame it in a title, it would be Manage Your Inner State. That's what you're talking about, Ken. Take a few deep breaths, close your eyes, do the 3-to-1 method, or do something, walk in nature, close your eyes, relax. You are managing your inner state. Your inner state is everything to do with manifesting. It is actually that. That in a nutshell is what you need to do, is manage that inner state. So I'll give you this great example for people who might be a little bit further down the road in terms of fear. I had a coaching client who was going through a really tough time at the moment in every aspect. And through just momentum of worry and doubt and, can't sleep at night, not getting enough sleep now, and then stressing more in the day and things aren't working out. And the more things aren't working out, the more stress is becoming, and the more that's going on, the worse it's getting. So it becomes like a downward spiral. So by the time he came into the coaching meeting, the only term I can use is he was gripped by fear. And that's the fight or flight mode. And what you said, it takes over the body and you actually immobilized. He doesn't want to exercise even. He doesn't want to even visualize. He doesn't want to write his goals down because he's completely gripped in fear. So if that is ever you, and it's become so strong, that negative momentum, the best thing I would recommend is the Silva long relax or the centering exercise. It's about 25 minutes. But if you just focus on that relaxation of the whole body, you will eventually release that grip on you that's coming from fear, because you have to stop that momentum. If you don't, that's why even going for a nap is a good idea, because if you go for a nap, you can't think. You stop thinking and you stop that momentum. So that inner state's really important. If you feel that anxious feeling or worried feeling, feelings of doubt, or things aren't working out and how's this going to work out for you, and it's quite negative and you're feeling worried and that negative feeling, be aware of your inner state. Be aware of the feeling. You can only feel 2 ways. Only 2 ways, good and bad. Yes, there are degrees of good and yes, there are degrees of bad, but really there's only good and bad. So whenever you're feeling bad, as soon as you can, stop, pause, and try to rebalance yourself and reestablish that inner state that Ken's talking about. So if it's quick that you catch it, close your eyes, as Ken said, a few deep breaths. But if it's a whole lot of negative momentum and you really are gripped in fear and you feel like you don't know your way out, that desperate feeling, I would recommend the long relax or go to sleep. But when you come out of sleep, make sure you don't start thinking the same thoughts again. Otherwise, you just go straight back there. So you have to be mindful. You have to be mindful.
And that long relax, affectionately, we've called it in the past the big relax.
Yes.
It's a cornerstone exercise that Jose Silva researched, hypnosis, meditation, biofeedback, and spent 22 years literally perfecting it. It's the most copied although many attempt to copy it, but they don't, some get it right, most don't. Proprietary process. And it works. The wording, the timing that we do, this is part of the training that instructors get. So I would second what you're saying, that although it doesn't sound very practical because it's nearly 30 minutes long, it's one of the best investments you could make to do it at least once a week,
Oh,
if
yes, and
not more.
I never ended the story with a happy ending. That's I need to just go back there. So I actually I did a little bit of coaching, couple of minutes, and understood where this person was, and I said, let's just stop and take a seat in a comfortable chair. I've got some lounge suite chairs here in my office, and said, close your eyes, and I guided the person through the long relax. And did you know he came out at the end of it in a completely different frame of mind? He said, I actually feel like I know what I need to do. I just need to sit down and make my plan, and I feel like I can get on top of things. But before that, it was impossible. It was like, I don't know what to do. I'm stressed. He was even moving quickly, like moving, like worried, like anxious, fidgety. He came out, he was calm, centered, and a completely different state of mind. So, your inner state is very, very, very important when it comes to manifesting.
And what Janine is describing is the body goes into homeostasis, and when the balance, and we're in balance, like all systems go, and we also cognition clear. It's like vacuuming out the cloud, and we find we're thinking more clearly. Higher thinking functions, we access them, we access intuition. So there's a whole science piece behind it that we're not going to go into detail. It's not just about relaxing, it's about really getting your body chemistry in balance so that it does what it's supposed to do for us, which then allows us to think more clearly, and you're able to manage your inner thinking. You're also accessing, if I can just have the chart in my room that I'm in here, is you're also accessing a sleep-like state, alpha and or theta. The brainwaves are slowing down, where we learn incredibly faster, where we're much more open to suggestion ideas. So I would say this, my observation has been, and Janine, I know we've talked about it, is how many people are so well read. They've been to every seminar. It's incredible the knowledge they have, and yet nothing really happens in their life because they haven't integrated it. They haven't brought it in. They haven't managed their state where they've made a shift in their consciousness, and where they're able to access that state, this new state of being, so to speak, that allows them to feel like the universe has got their back, where you're in a flow. It's not perfection, far from it, but things get easier, and we experience a lot of synchronicities and a lot of meaningful coincidences, and we begin to recognize opportunities that are probably there all along. We were just so stressed we didn't see it. And
Yes.
therefore it seems like, wow, look at all this, boom, 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 with that. So as you can tell, it's a big piece of the
Yes.
puzzle at any time, and while we're spending it. I would like to, we're talking about managing the inner state. Can I add something? Unless you wanted to add another piece, that I was on a little bit of a rant before about gimme, gimme, gimme. If you remember the late, great, wonderful human being, Wayne Dyer, he used to call it the disease called more. It's like when people have that disease, the more they have, the more they want, and it's never enough. I can remember telling my sons, my daughter too, there'll always be somebody who earns more than you. There'll always be a bigger house, a bigger car. There'll always be a faster computer, etc. And by the way, that's what marketing is doing, is kind of seducing people to just, you got to keep upgrading, keep upgrading, keep upgrading, with that. But even in our lives with that. So if, as an example, a relationship, you hear often people express, and it makes sense. I feel for them. They're lonely and they'd like to have a meaningful relationship, whether it be a good friend, a lover, a spouse, but a good relationship, meaningful. And so people will use something like mirror the mind or some visualization for imagining the ideal mate, the ideal friend. They might also do the same for a job, for work, or a situation in their business. And I would say that's so well and good. Again, I saw this whole interaction on Facebook, and the big piece that's missing there is, if this is you, what do you have to offer? If you were looking to have a relationship with somebody, what do you have to offer that relationship? What do you bring to the game?
Yeah.
What can you contribute to that that would add value in the relationship to make it harmonious and loving and fun and all the things you want, as opposed to, again, lack, gimme, 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 I want, I want. And don't get me wrong, I understand when we're in that space, it's hard sometimes to shift out of it. But as long as you're in that space, nothing's going to happen because it's fear based. And instead of being here and in a state where it seems like the magic happens, it's just the opposite. We get defensive.
Yeah,
And it's
that's
like their
actually very
shields up.
true. And even if I can frame it in my own life, in my business, if I've ever thought about making more money, it's been a harder grind. If I've ever thought about how can I help people more and serve and forget about the money part, I automatically find money rolling in, and I always have more than enough, and I don't worry about it, and it surprises me how much is coming in. And that's just that focus of as if there's a line, and I'll just call it the line of courage or the line of faith that things are going to be okay. If you're below that and you think I don't have enough or I'm not enough or whatever, and that lack-based mentality, you remain there, and it's a very frenetic kind of energy. If you go above that and you have faith that you will always be taken care of, and you believe that that's how your life experience is going to end up being, but you're thinking about serving, like you just said, even in a relationship, what can you bring to a relationship and how can you really enrich someone else's life and their experience and get your focus off yourself and your needs, and how can you really serve, you'll find that you manifest way faster and way better than you could ever begin to imagine. And it's that just subtle shift of all the focus on me and what I need to get versus what can I serve and how can I help someone else.
I think we could say the same thing about leadership, or in business, sometimes it's called lead with generosity.
Right.
For
Absolutely.
that. And I would say that we're in an era. I started in the 70s, and there's been a big shift, and more, it's like, for example, on our YouTube channels or on our page, we create these videos, and they're lessons. They're full of takeaways. And it's great. That's leading with generosity to give people a taste, a sample, hopefully help them. And then maybe they want to go farther. Maybe they want to go deeper, with that. So that's really another takeaway is add value. As Janine was saying, is what is it you're going to give in the relationship? What are you offering so that you're more likely to attract someone like that? Of course, you have your own qualities and you have your own needs. And that's a whole nother story. What we're both saying is you're coming from a place of generosity, a
Yes.
place of service, a place of giving, a place of love, rather than of narcissistic, me, self-absorbed, which, again, I don't mean to minimize it, but it's a really serious challenge. It's because when we're hurting, when things are not going well, and when we've, maybe tripped and fell and things are just not working out, it's easy to slip into that self-absorbed state. I mean, think of it, those who are watching, think of it. Have you ever been there yourself? Or do you know people that you love them dearly, and yet they're so self-absorbed that having a 5-minute conversation leaves you drained
That's right.
because
That's right.
they're
Because
like sucking the life out of you.
it's true. They really got nothing to offer. And if you become intentional, even if you have to practice it with effort in the beginning, the fact that you're practicing, I can add value to you in every way, or I can give to you that serving or that service or that adding value. The minute you're actually doing that, think about it on a subconscious level. It means I have, therefore I can give. So the first thought is I have, therefore I can give. And I have shifts you out of a state of lack mentality, because I have is an abundance mindset. I have, therefore I can give. And the more I give, uh, obviously, the more we receive, because there's a law of circulation which operates, or the law of reciprocation, or the law of cause and effect. They're all universal laws. They could be similar, they might have different names, but it really is the law of sowing and reaping. As you sow, so shall you reap. So if as you give, so shall you receive. And I just want to add one other thing, which might be a component for people who are really feeling stuck, and if you are really experiencing in your world a very challenging time, especially when it comes to money or losing your job, not being able to find a job, not knowing where the next income is going to come from, and you're in that state, and all you can think of is, I don't have, and I don't know how I'm going to pay the bills and things like that. One thing that Ken and I have both discussed before and practiced before, and it works wonders, is gratitude. Gratitude can shift your energy that we're talking about earlier, shift your inner state. Well, no matter how bad things are, you can always find things to be grateful for. And if a person is really in a worried, woe is me state, let's be honest, it happens to all of us at some point, almost like a victim mentality. Why is it happening to me? Why is life so hard for me? Even that person, if you just stopped, took a pen and paper and decided to just start writing, I'm so happy and grateful now that, and a whole list of things, whether it's your ears to hear this webinar, or your eyes to watch us speak, or the fact that you're holding a device in your hand that you can actually get access to YouTube videos or Facebook lives or whatever to help you, the fact that you've got legs to stand on, or you can go outside if you can, anything to be grateful for. You've got food that you had today, you woke up healthy, you in a country that honors peace, whatever it may be. The more you go into gratitude, the better your life becomes. And then the smallest thing happens in a form of receiving, the smallest thing, like someone even buys you a cup of coffee. Go overboard with your gratitude. Use intentional gratitude to the maximum. Just in yourself, say, thank you, thank you. I'm so blessed. I'm so grateful. I'm so appreciative. I'm so thankful. And you'll find the minute you do that, I don't know how to say it again, but for me, it's just like the barriers come down and the floodgates start to just open. So you even
It's
told me
such,
about that a long time ago, about people attending your class, for everyone that booked. You just were so grateful and so thankful with real intention. The next thing, you had bigger classes than you'd had in a long time. And I can say the same.
and what Jenny was referring to, I would sit and meditate and just imagine, people I'm helping. Imagine them transforming their lives. And what I love about the program, it's helped me navigate the 50 years of the ups and downs that are inevitable in any business, in any movement, by having a clear life vision of the value, the work I want to do, the contribution, and it keeps you in that state. I was smiling before about the gratitude piece because, if I may say, we all know this. Everybody talks about it, gratitude. It's become common knowledge, maybe even common sense. But that doesn't mean it's common practice, does it?
Right.
And that's the challenge that to all of us is. It's one thing to know something intellectually. It's another thing to embrace it and to live it and to show up and practice it, to live it, to make it part of your spiritual practice, to part of your daily practice, because you find that the more you appreciate, the more you have to appreciate.
Yes, and if you think about the law of attraction, which is really the law of vibration, let's just make it clear. The law of attraction is a
Yeah.
marketing term for a universal law called the law of vibration that doesn't require your belief. It still operates, it's always consistent, and it's always exact, precise, predictable. So what it's saying is, whatever you are feeling, you will actually change your vibration, because at the lowest form, we're bodies, we're made of organs and then tissues and then molecules and atoms. At the lowest form of subatomic particles is really energy. And this energy is in a state of vibration. So you can actually wire someone up to an instrument, and if they're very, very happy, you can measure that. And if they're very, very angry, you can measure that. And there's a lower vibration, a high vibration. So this is just how you're feeling. So if the law of vibration says like attracts like, or that's likened to itself is drawn, if you're feeling gratitude, it means you're going to just keep attracting into your life things that are going to give you that same feeling. More gratitude, more gratitude. Wouldn't you want that? So that's why we have to intentionally, you're talking about we all know but don't do. That's how I've heard the biggest gap in the world, Ken, the biggest gap in the world is that between what we know and that we do.
Yeah.
So sometimes push aside your doubts. Does this really work? Is the law of attraction really real? I don't really know. Just put that aside and give it your best shot. Just practice gratitude every day, as often as you can. Gratitude journal. I do it every single night. Every night, without fail, I journal at night. It helps me go to sleep feeling wonderfully grateful, happy, and thankful for everything in my life. And I tend to wake up that way. They say the way you go to sleep is the way you wake up. So rather go to sleep happy and grateful than stressed, worried, anxious, because then you continue the cycle. And the more you practice gratitude, and I'm serious when I say for every tiny small thing that shows up, give a huge amount of thanks. I guarantee your situation will shift. Just stay there. Don't oscillate between anxious and gratitude, anxious and worry. Try to dominate with the gratitude energy. Don't oscillate, because all you're doing is having contradictory energy. So try and maintain that upward place of a high vibration.
In Silva Mastery, which is a graduate program I present globally, and also in Life System, the immersion of life and intuition system. An easy way to remember this is, I like to call it the law of attention. Whatever you give attention to, you give energy to. And whatever you give energy to will grow and multiply. There's so many ways of saying that, and that's so precise. It's like, you're driving your car, and if all of a sudden, oh, look at the deer, they're so pretty, the car starts moving in that direction of where we're looking. You got to be, that happens to me all the time. You need to be careful. Keep your eyes on the road, because whatever we give attention to, it's like we start directing that way. And so when you mentioned before with the distractions, let's add another piece to it, another
Sure.
takeaway for that. So you went before about managing the inner state. All of this contributes to managing your inner state so that you're not full of worry and fear. And there was a song, I think it was 1972, 73-ish. I started Silva in 1971, and as a kid from Brooklyn, raised in a dogmatic Roman Catholic background, Italian background, I knew none of this stuff. But here I am in Boston, and actually I'd heard of Ken Coscia. He's no longer alive, but his book, you could probably still find it, called The Handbook to Higher Consciousness. And it's really about principles we're talking about now, expressed differently. But I went on an intensive there in Berkeley, California for a week. And one of the songs we sang every morning, when you give it all up, I don't remember all the words, but the main line was, when you give it all up, you get it all back. And it's so drilled. It's still here. When I sing it, when I think it, I'm there in the room, by the way. It made a permanent impression. And the good feelings and the lessons. And examine that. Here's another takeaway. Some might call it the art of surrender. In my humble opinion, manifesting, co-creating is an art form. It's a craft. And like any craft, it takes discipline, it takes skills, it takes implementing the skills, showing up and practicing. And you don't have to be the best in the best. All it takes is consistency. And I stand before you as a living example. That's why I'm still here 50 years later as the senior instructor, the most only because I'm consistent. One of my sons for Christmas gave me a book, 100 Things I Love About Dad. And he repeated about 3 times. I think he ran out of things to say because it was 100 statements, was that I never give up. And that's
great.
And it's true. It's very hard for me to take no with that. Just even what we did before, I don't believe in pushing through. I think that's just marketing speak for, push through, get tough. Now, if you're pushing through, you're creating resistance. If you're creating resistance, you're not in a flow. You do want to continue. You want to be persistent. So it's a little bit challenging, this surrender. The balance between, you don't want to give up, but you don't want to be, what I'm saying is there's a difference between obsession and passion. Passion, intense desire. What are the benefits? So this new relationship you want to scale up your business. How will that benefit you or your family, anyone you care about? How will it benefit your clients? How will it benefit this person relationship you want to attract in your life? Have that passion, of course, desire. But if that's all we think about, it becomes obsessive. And obsessive energy is fear-based.
Yeah,
and obsessive energy gets us into lack. And that's why we often tell, I know when I was with you in Australia, that we had so much fun. Can't wait for this stupid stuff to be over, that we can go back to in-person events. And one of the things that was emphasized is you have all the tools. And probably you folks, guys, gals watching this, you have all the tools. The challenge is that maintaining that delicate balance. And when there's a technique we call mirror the mind. It's the most used. It's the ultimate reframing technique and self-improvement. And the guideline is when you're creatively visualizing, mentally rehearsing something, you don't necessarily want to do it every single day because that can become obsessive. You want to especially do it managing your inner state as often as you think about it in a worrisome or negative manner, because that is feedback telling you you're not buying it, you're not owning it, you're not absorbing it, you're fighting it because you're worrying about it. So and initially you may be doing it every day, a few times a day, but eventually then there comes a point where you have to let go and allow nature to take its course. And if I can give you one quick personal example, then let me let you jump in, Janine, is most Silva instructors, especially old schoolers like myself, and Jose was definitely a key instrument here in breeding into us almost a missionary complex, almost like money was bad. And he was concerned that it would go to our heads, we'd be too successful. And I could tell stories of things that he would say to us, for that. Frankly, it took me years to get over that. And it's a mission that we do that happens to also be a business, as opposed to a business with a mission statement. It's a big difference. And most people I know, Janine, you might be one of them too. Well, I know you're very heartfelt. Would do it for free if we had to, but it's not practical. I mean, duh. We all know that with that. So a lot of mistakes are made. So what I'm leading up to is I acknowledge, I have to be very careful in managing my inner state because I tend to get overly concerned. If I know a friend is in trouble or something, I show up, I call, I want to be supportive, but I admit sometimes, and I wake up at night, I have to watch out not to go into worry mode. So the long story short is this: my wife, Barbara, is pregnant of our first child. What money we had, we sunk into a down payment for our home. We bought our home. And at the same time, business went, and I was quite like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I got all these expenses with that. So I found that the more I thought about it, the more I worried, the worse it got.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing was true when I was a student struggling in school. I was so worried taking Silva and learning to use the three fingers technique and learning the rapid accelerated learning technique. It's about learning how to learn. I went from failing to straight A's, and I was a full-time instructor in Boston working at night, and during the day I was a student. Well, I overlooked it when it came to this, managing the business side or the money. And I knew where every penny coming in, I knew what revenue was coming in, what had to go out, and I could project out a few months. And I was playing, with credit cards, pay Peter with Paul, and so on. Not a fun time. If ever you've been through that and you can relate, it's horrible. But there came a point where I surrendered. And I gave it all up to my wife and let her do the bookkeeping. And instead of being so cognizant and so focused on that, I ask a question. Are we meeting all of our monthly, bills, needs? Are we saving? I like to save minimum of 15% to 30%. Are we able to do that? And do we have some money left over to play, socialize? And if the answer is yes, I'm happy.
Yeah.
If the answer is no, then I might look more closely and see, where it's at. And I have found that when I made that shift, I don't remember exactly when, but it's at least a couple of decades ago, everything changed for me. Everything changed for me where there was more of a flow. It was, I won't say it was effortless, it's a lot of work, but more of a flow and then thriving because of maintaining that balance. And that's the point, that we've got to be really careful for things not to become obsessive, where we're worried, because if you keep digging it up, it's like a plant. If you dig it up every day and say, hey, how you doing, buddy? Oh, you look so nice. And you pray, you spit for moisture. If you do that every day, it's never going to grow because you're interrupting what? Nature. It's not taking root. So when you do your mental rehearsal, your creative visualization, or technique of the mind, it's important that you do just as much as you need and only go back to it as often as you're thinking about it in a negative or worrisome manner.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Sure. And I think we can explain this just in a scientific way so people understand why obsessing doesn't create. Every subject has really got two ends to it. So if it was about money, we program for the having of money, but when it's not showing up we have an awareness that it hasn't shown up. So then you're on the opposite end of the subject. So the subject is always two subjects. It's a law of polarity. The law of polarity exists with everything in the physical world. So having and not having is the same subject. Money, having, not having. We program for having, program for having. But if your awareness in the day is it hasn't come yet, you're going to track that. It hasn't come yet. You're going to track that. It hasn't come yet. And that's what worrying is. So when Ken says surrender, it means basically take the whole stick and chuck it out of your vicinity. And if you ever want to think of the subject, my suggestion is only think of this. I love the feeling when, and you go to the positive side of the stick. I love the feeling when I have more than enough. And just feel that feeling. You can even close your eyes, with the going to like an internal state just for a second, 2 or 3. I love that feeling when I have more than enough. And then that little tiny thing is like a mini meditation. It's an injection of a good state in your body of, I love that feeling when I have enough. And absolutely eliminate the subject otherwise. Because in the Silva method, if any of you listening are Silva graduates, you'll know this. And if you're not, basically the way to create, we do in the Silva method 3 key things, which is desire, belief, and expectancy. And those 3 together is faith. So if you think about faith is taking the stick and saying, I'm going to visualize or think about how good it feels to have, let's say it's money, to have money. And then faith means I trust that this will be done, because faith is really trust without reservation. It's like full conviction without like conviction in your belief. You're staying on the one side. That's what faith is, staying on the one side. So as Ken said, whenever you think, oh, well, I don't have enough, or don't entertain that thought. Get off the subject. I don't know, focus on your cat. Give her a kiss. Go pet your dog and go for a walk. Get your mind onto things that you are feeling good, because your feeling is everything. As long as you're feeling good, that's everything. And if you do happen to think of the subject, force or train yourself to say, I love the feeling when, and the positive side. I love the feeling when I have enough, even if you have to use a lot of your imagination. So if you took that further, desire, belief, expectancy, visualization, imagination, and action. So if there are opportunities, as Ken said, you've got to act. If there's an opportunity to do something that will help improve a situation, you must act. Some people don't act. It's like they say they want a job, someone talks about one that's available, tell them to immediately contact the guy and send him your resume because he's looking for someone, and then you don't act. 3 days later, you finally get yourself together and you call him and say, oh no, the job's taken. That's a lack of action. So desire, belief, expectancy, imagination, visualization, take action, and then persevere. As Ken said, you just got to pick up yourself every day and do the best you can every day. I love the idea that your life can change in 24 hours. So every day when you wake up, it's a new day. Don't let all the worries of yesterday and the past burden a fresh new day. Take a fresh new day as a fresh new start, and be positive and meditate in the morning. Go for a walk in nature. Have good feelings. Visualize the thing that you like to create. Then release it, like surrendering. Let it go with full faith. So those really are key steps. But being mindful as to your awareness on the absence of something literally creates more of the absence, because that's what the law of attraction does. You get what you think about, whether you want it or not. So think about the having of it and the good feeling, and try your best not to focus on the absence of it. It hasn't shown up yet.
So let me pose a question. Excellent, right there. Suppose, though, think, and by the way, those of you who are still watching and are still here, be it live or watching the replay, good for you that you care enough about yourself, that you love yourself enough
Absolutely.
to follow through, because that's another takeaway. A lot of this is loving yourself enough to give yourself permission to grow or not grow, to take action, to study, to research, to ask for help, whatever it might be. Along the lines of what Janine is saying is another definition that I heard of faith, a little more eclectic, is having the confidence that somehow, some way, you'll figure it out.
Yeah, so faith, yeah, absolutely. And faith can be so many things. So some people think when they hear the word faith, it's got to do with religion. Let's just say this. If you do have a faith that's a religious-based faith, great. Because if you have faith in a power greater than you, the days you're feeling weak, you can draw on the resource of a power greater than you and just, rely on that power to help sustain you or get you through the next day or whatever it may be. If you don't have any religious faith or you're agnostic, whatever it may be, well, then have faith in your purpose, have faith in yourself, and have faith in the path that you're on. Believe in yourself. And Ken's right. Self-love, taking care of yourself, watching this. Self-love is absolutely and directly related to all the good things you want in your life. Loving relationships, money, to have more than enough, fun times, good health. You got to love yourself enough. People who don't love themselves don't take care of their body and their health. People who don't love themselves don't feel worthy and deserving of having more than they need. So abundance and prosperity is related to self-love. Loving relationships. You don't have self-love. If you don't love yourself, what do you expect someone else can give you? Because it's always going to be a match. So self-love is a necessary requirement. People say, well, how do you do that? Well, one of the greatest teachers on this planet for self-love is Louise Hay. Pick up any of her material. There's so much free stuff on YouTube, even meditations about learning to love yourself. You must practice loving yourself, even looking in the mirror every day and being comfortable saying, I love myself, I believe in myself, I'm worthy of and deserving of fulfilling all my desires. If that sounds strange to you, you probably need it the most. I started doing that. We had a guy, I don't know if you remember, Ken, he was in your class in Connecticut. He came for the Silva Method, or Chicago, sorry, in the Silva Method. And he stood up and he said, I've got a click counter and I've told myself I love myself over 300,000 times. And he changed his life. I stayed in contact with him after the training. And that guy went from having a really, really rough experience to getting way, way better. And all he did was practice every day, repeating, I love myself, seriously, with a click counter. So self-love is really important. And
another way of looking at self-love is it relates to what psychologists have identified as the sole determining factor of how successful one is in their life. Self-esteem. Self-esteem has to do with self-love and respecting ourselves enough to take care of ourselves. So to take that time to go for that walk that you want to go, to spend a little bit of time with the dear friend that you find invigorating, to treat yourself to a meal. People say, I'll cook for other people, but it's just me. Well, you're just as important as other people. Why not prepare that special meal for yourself? And there's little acts like that. I want to go back to this faith thing because, frankly, even though I was raised dogmatically, I wasn't even thinking of the spiritual side of it, just in terms of the everyday actions of when we have confidence in ourselves that somehow we'll figure things out. One way to maintain that is to study prior successes, to look back in your life and say, hey, this is something I've done. Remember in the life system, in day 2 of the 4-day immersion, we teach this as a tool. We never used to in the early days. We call it a resource state. And by actually having evidence, even if it's a small little success, let alone a big one, you can say, hey, if I've done it before, I can do it again. And that boosted confidence will then give you the courage to take more action, to learn something more. And then you'll get more skills, you'll develop more competence. And that little bit more competence will cause you to be a little bit more successful. And that gives you a little bit more confidence and courage to take more action, to learn some more. I heard somebody brilliantly call it the confidence-competence loop. They both feed on each other, which is what we're saying here.
I actually found a person, as I was talking earlier, very stressed about what wasn't working, and they had such doubt they couldn't fix their situation. And I said, have you ever overcome a real challenge in your life before? And the person said yes. I said, tell me more about that. As they were talking, I said, tell me more about that. How did you feel when that happened? How did you know that you could do that? And as they were talking, they changed their state just by talking about how they overcame a previous challenge. So for yourself, when you're having a tough day, when you think you can't get through, as Ken said, reflect on when you did it before, when you overcame a challenge before, and revisit those resources of yourself, that strength deep within, that persistence, determination, whatever it is. And the more you think of how you overcame that, you will re-embody that state. And you'll suddenly feel absolutely I've done it before, I can do it again. You'll feel that feeling come back. So it's very, very powerful to have previous evidence to go back in.
I want to acknowledge you and I tonight. Easily 30 minutes. Couldn't get it to work. We signed in and out of Zoom 3 or 4 times, and then finally we got it to work for that. And it's a little sloppy, you might say. You know, I'd like it to have been more flow and show off, but we're still here. We showed up. We didn't just say, screw this, can't do it. And we maintained it. And oftentimes in life is we're seeking perfection, and nobody's perfect, and there is no perfection. We're all learning. If we learn the lesson from a faux pas, that's what counts. If we don't learn the lesson, then I would say it's a failure, because we didn't learn what not to do or the lesson with that. So, boy, a lot going on. What do you say about I think you said we were on Facebook Live. Were there any comments or questions? You want to open up?
I have a feeling that I do see it on my feed. I think it might be cast afterwards. I'm not sure, Ken, but it definitely is recording. It will go to Facebook. I don't have any questions at the moment. But people can post below, and we can always interact with the post afterwards. But I can't pick it up right now, and it probably has to be cast, upload to Facebook. So just in the interest of time, Ken, I thought let's just wrap up with any further key takeouts that we have. So up to where we are, we were talking about managing our inner state. We were talking about gratitude. We were talking about spending time
surrender,
in nature, loving yourself, faith, surrender. And then I just have 1 or 2 more, which is manage your inner dialogue. What you're thinking, you're going to end up saying. And in the Silva Method, we have the cancel technique. It's not rocket science. You don't have to be a graduate to understand this. Every time you say something negative, just go cancel, and overwrite it with a positive affirmation. And you can't be lying about it. Like, let's just say, for example, I've got no money, cancel. Oh, I've got lots of money, when you don't. But you can move towards a positive thing. So if you're at the bottom of your rope, the good word to start off with maybe is hopefully. Cancel, hopefully things will get better. Say that enough times, then you can say, I'm really having a tough time, cancel. Things are looking like they're getting better for me. And just affirm that. And if it is, or I'm feeling really tired and exhausted from this, cancel, I could do with a good rest. Something like that. So just don't run yourself down. Don't speak negatively about yourself ever. Cancel, and override with a positive statement. That's my extra add on there. Then if you have another one.
Well, I want to add on to that, for that, because it's really profound. And in the class, please understand, we spend more time building this out in the immersion of life and intuition system. What that is, though, we now know, and looking back at my early days, I couldn't say that. Now I can say, because of brain scans, we're literally rewiring the brain. So what happens is, because old patterns that no longer serve us have become the default. And when we go into scarcity, we slip back by default into those old patterns that don't get us where we want to go. So that cancel, if you say it out loud to yourself, everybody, cancel, it sounds ridiculous. It's absurd. What it is a pattern interrupter. So we have these patterns. We're all habitual. Habits develop, and they have to be changed. They just won't go away because you want them to go away. And the key is, and what Mr. Silva, without even having the language way back, is you got to interrupt the pattern before it blooms, before it takes hold, and then substitute something more positive. So the idea of the cancel, if you find yourself slipping into worry mode, and oh my God, I don't know if I can do that, you just say to yourself quietly, cancel, and then reframe it into something more positive.
Some way I can do this.
Right. Even though you don't know yet, that's more believable, because if you say, I know what to do, that's a lie. It doesn't work.
Yes, it doesn't work.
You got to make it more believable like that.
That's right. A positive and more.
And I want to go back to the idea of the consistency of showing up, and a little exercise is look in the mirror at night before you go to sleep and just look at yourself. Right. I was doing this with my grandchild. I just came back from California. It was his 5th birthday, and a few days later, his sister 3. And I confess, I'm a goofy grandpa. And Barbara and I, my wife, we stayed in a hotel, and we took the kids with us. It was great. It was a blast. We got So they were in one room, we were in the other room. So when we're brushing teeth and everything, I showed them, I said, now look in the mirror and I'm going to show you and I'm going to talk to myself and this is what I want you to do. And you look right in your eyes and say, I love myself. And it
That's
was a
right.
great, coolest thing. This little five was saying, I love myself. And to look and say, I am enough. Because the closing thought I would say is, I mean, there's so much here. We spend 4 days and then 2 days in graduate work. And Janine does an incredible program now called Silva Manifesting, which is open to Silva grads and non-grads. And I know the program well, but I know that she has updated it. And these are the kinds of things we do, is not so much to give new information as much as helping people integrate it, helping people to make sense of it. And the dynamic meditations is the difference that will make the difference, because it's a way to internalize the new understandings, the new beliefs. So this idea of the consistency, repetition is needed. And the daily application of being and the presence with that. And by doing that, you're building your self-esteem, your self-love, because you're loving yourself enough to take the time, even if it's just for 5 minutes, let alone 10. The idea would be 15 minutes. And the science behind that is, the science now shows that 13 minutes does the trick. Early research used to suggest it took 20 to 25 minutes based on Herbert Benson's, when he did the relaxation response at Harvard and the studies, that it took about 20, 25 minutes for the body to catch up to the mind and to get into this state of bliss. Now the research shows it can be accomplished in 13 minutes.
Wow.
But not necessarily 30 seconds, a minute, 3 minutes, only if you're very skilled and very proficient. And even when you are, because the way life is, it takes time. So kind of a closing thought I would want to say is, love yourself enough to hang in there and ask for help when you need, get more training when you need, or read another book, but something that gives you instructions, things to do that help you to internalize it and make it a part of you. Because the knowledge without that is just knowledge. And right now, beware of being seduced to become a consumer of knowledge, which is what's going on now primarily I see in the industry. I'm concerned because I hope it doesn't ruin our industry, because people eventually will kind of get frustrated. What good? I do this with coaching people, mentoring people one-on-one, and I'm hearing this, people feeling frustrated that I did this, I did that, and I bought this book and I did that, and nothing's really changed.
Yeah, that's also called shiny object syndrome, where you just jump from course to course. They call them even course junkies or personal development junkies. You go from thing to thing. The best advice is stick with one voice until you've got results. Once you've got results, you can move on to something else. But don't jump from this program and then you finished it and you wished you had an instant magic wand and got something new, and you never, so you jump to another course. No, stay with that voice and practice that thing until you've got results, and then move on to the next thing. Shiny object syndrome is worth Googling. I used to suffer from that myself, so I'm a convert, and I know what that's like. You just become a knowledge addict, but they say knowledge without application is pointless.
Exactly. And the same thing is happening because it's a real concern, making money, having a job, living a purposeful life. And there's, God, so many certifications. But what's missing is they're not going to build this for you. And I can't tell you how many people I've met that I've attempted to counsel and say, slow down. And then they come back to me and say, I got 8 certifications, I spent all this money and I've done nothing with it. Because when people wake up to what it takes to make it happen, it's not as simple. It's one thing to be certified and skilled. It's another thing then to have the technology, the marketing, the sales, etc., and all the skills that are needed in order to manage the business side of it.
That's right.
Anyway.
All right.
So this has been great, Janine.
I just wanted to add one thing, and it's a topic too big to discuss in 1 minute, but I'll just put it in because it's really important. When it comes to manifesting, a massive blocker of things manifesting in your life is when we're holding feelings of resentment, resistance, or revenge. So we never spoke about forgiveness, but forgiveness is the biggest block in the pipe of flow. That's all I can say. If you can imagine the flow being a pipe of all good things in your life, and a big rock is in there, it's called forgiveness. So I'll just add that last piece, and maybe another time, Ken, we can maybe talk about forgiveness, because it
Yeah.
really is, when you practice that, and I know you've been doing that and I've been doing that for a while, really life becomes so much better. You just love everybody more, and you love your life more, and you got more money flowing in, and you feel even healthier, and all those negative energies can even affect your health for sure. So that's my last point on that, and then I'm done. We can wish the people love and light.
Yeah, I look forward for more, and one day I hope those of you watching will grace us with your presence. And now we're doing virtuals, although I'm looking forward to getting back to in-person events, although we'll probably always do some virtuals because it has opened up the doors for people. I mean, it's very cool. I have people from Australia occasionally, not too often because it's the time difference, but from all over the world, and they're telling me I could never come to your classes before because of I had to pay for airfare, hotel. Now it's just the fee and in the comfort of my home,
That's
which
right.
is so. I hope people don't get too used to it, though.
All right. Well, thank you
Anyway,
everybody for
uh,
watching. We're going to sign off now. Thank you so much, Ken, for your time and your
oh, you're
generosity and your
welcome.
contribution. Yeah.
My
All right.
pleasure.
See you
Cheers,
guys.
everybody.
Bye.